Hello and welcome to another episode here on my channel. My name is ChaosMole and today we are talking about the 4 things you should consider when you are a new player in Final Fantasy XIV Online. If you are like me, coming from a different MMO background, namely World of Warcraft, then Final Fantasy XIV is a different game. Yes, it looks very similar, and on the first glance you might think, nah, this is like World of Warcraft, but just like some different buttons, some different graphics, and that's about it, right? And the answer is no, not really, not at all. You will realize that very quickly when you are finally playing the game for the first time, like I did. And I came to the realization that this game is very different to what I have expected. And I know that a lot of people are now checking out the game for the first time because the new expansion is coming out soon. Then there is, of course, that multiple big Twitch streamers will check out the game for the first time in the coming weeks. And there's just a lot of buzz surrounding this game right now. So let's talk about the 4 things. The first one is for free. This one doesn't really count to the 4 I want to talk about, but please download the trial version of the game. Do not spend any money. You don't have to. Get the trial version of the game. It is the base game plus the first expansion, which translate to roughly 100 hours of gameplay, I would nearly say. And it's completely for free. There are no strings attached. And you can, of course, then continue your adventure when you decide to buy the game. Well, okay, there are a few strings attached to the whole trial version, but those strings are more to keep back like gold sellers and gold spammers in chat, and not really to make the whole gameplay for you harder. There's nothing which holds you back on gameplay or the jobs you can play or the regions you can check out. Like, don't you worry about it. Like, as I said, check out the trial. It's for free. And there are no strings attached really to it. So, that one was for free. Let's talk about the first thing you should really consider, and let's talk about classes here in the game, or as we call them in Final Fantasy XIV, jobs. And yes, fair warning, I will still say classes sometimes, because even after 7 years of playing this game, I still have a big problem with calling classes jobs. It's so weird for me. I still don't understand why they choose the different name for it, but here we are. So let's talk about the jobs. You might probably ask, okay, which is the job for me? Which is the most OP job? Which is the most like nerfed job right now? What is the meta in Final Fantasy XIV look like? So regarding which job is for you, figure it out. Like seriously. A lot of people who start with a certain job realize very quickly that their job is not necessarily as they have expected it to be, and then they switch to another job. I mean, that's pretty cool, because in Final Fantasy XIV you don't have to create another character. You can just switch the class, aka the job, whenever you so desire. Switching the weapon, let's say from a one-handed sword to a pistol, will switch from the paladin, which you can by the way see here in the background, to a mechanist. It's just easy to switch. Keep in mind though, when you are switching the class, that class has a different level. Like every class slash job is leveling for themselves. So when you have, let's say, a level 20 paladin, you realize that's not really the job you want to play in Final Fantasy XIV, and you switch to a ranger, then the ranger will start on level 1 again. The good thing is, leveling in Alt in Final Fantasy is faster. So the moment you are starting to level up a second job in Final Fantasy, or a third job, or a fourth job, it will be faster than you did with the first one. So Final Fantasy XIV is actually supporting Alt job leveling, which is pretty nice. But now you might say, okay, but what is the meta like? Like, which are the very good, superior classes in the game, and which are the jobs which, well, let's be honest here, are not so great right now? And the answer is, there is not really one. Yeah, I know there's some videos out there who would tell you, no, there is a meta and this is how it looks like, but to be honest, it doesn't matter. That's the point of it. Like, the end point is, it doesn't matter. You can finish every content in the game with every class easily. Nobody will kick you out of the group when you are playing as a ninja or a bard or something like that. Like, nobody is even wimping an eye on like, what? You're playing a what? A black mage? Oh boy. Well, I think we can take one black mage with us. Like, that will never happen. That is not how Final Fantasy works. And a big point of that is the balance in the game. Like, the developers have actually managed to keep the balance in Final Fantasy XIV in check. So don't think too much about it. Choose the class / the job which you might actually enjoy, and then just go for it. It's as simple as that. Now let's talk about the second point. Let's talk about mods for Final Fantasy XIV. You're probably in the game for the first time and you realize, ooh, this interface, this is not for me. Where can I get some like modded interfaces? Where can I get like a boss meter? Where can I get a DPS meter? And the answer is, they don't exist. It just doesn't exist. And the good thing is, you don't need them. Because for the interface, you can change everything in the game. You just have to hit escape, go into the interface option menu, and you can change literally everything. The position, how big the interface is, how the icons look like, if they even should show up, and so on and so forth. Like, you can literally change everything or make things even disappear. It's as simple as that. Now let's talk about the other mods. Do you need a boss mod? As I said, doesn't exist, but you don't need one, because all the bosses in Final Fantasy XIV are designed for the idea to tell you what's going on. Like, there are a lot of like symbols popping up in the fight, where after one or two tries you realize very quickly what those symbols mean, and then you will react accordingly. Yes, at the beginning you might be wondering, what is this arrow on the player popping up? And then you die, and then you're like, oh, maybe I should have run to the player. Yeah, I think that would have been good. Like, again, you will see a lot of signs in the game where you don't know necessarily right at the beginning what it means, but then you will learn very quickly, and you don't need a boss mod because the game has basically an a built-in boss mod for Final Fantasy XIV. Now let's talk about the DPS meter. As I said, it doesn't exist. This is also, this is one of the big reasons why balancing works as it works, because people do not have a boss mod to check if their job is now super OP and if everyone is doing the damage. Now I can already see some people how they are running into my comment section of YouTube and will write, "Mo, there is a DPS meter in the game." I am aware. Yes. But the point is, it doesn't matter. And you shouldn't use it. The reason for that is, first, it's against the TOS of Final Fantasy XIV. Like, if you were starting to post that DPS meter, or if you were starting to call out people or monitor people for their DPS in a raid or in a group, you would get banned from the game. And I mean that. Like, there have been multiple people who are wondering why their account got banned. And then, like, developers or CMs are coming by and telling them, yeah, well, here's the screenshot. You have posted that. Read our TOS. It is not allowed. We don't want this here. And, well, you broke the TOS. It's as simple as that. So just ignore it anyways. And as I said, the whole game is not for a DPS meter designed in mind. It's not like World of Warcraft, where even Blizzard admits that a lot of the balancing they do is because they know that players can just check on the DPS. Like the boss fights you see in a lot of raids or dungeons are designed with people having a DPS meter in mind. Whereas in Final Fantasy XIV, all the people don't have that, or 99% of the people don't use a DPS meter, and so they also don't design the boss fights like that. Like, there are a lot of boss fights where not everyone has to give 100%. You always should try to. You always should try to make the most DPS out of the fight, but the difference here is you don't have to, because there are also a lot of moments in the game where you cannot even do damage. Final Fantasy XIV has a lot of content where the fights are basically designed that you cannot do any attacks for multiple seconds and your DPS will just plunge. So it doesn't matter. Don't think about it too much and just have fun. Now let's talk about the third and biggest point, which is enjoy the ride. Final Fantasy XIV is a slow-paced game, especially at the beginning. It does so many things super slow that even for me, who is a very chill person, thought at one point, man, do I really want to continue to play this? Like, they're explaining the world to you. They're explaining the story to you. They're explaining the lore to you. They're explaining MMO gameplay to you. As somebody who has already played so many years of MMOs, I don't need that explanation, but it is there for new players, of course. And there's also the global cooldown of 2.5 seconds. And this is all coming together at the beginning of the game, and it's just so slow in comparison to every other MMO I've ever played. That, of course, changes throughout the game. That's important to note. You are getting more and more abilities who are not even on the global cooldown. The bosses are getting tougher, the fights are getting tougher, there are more gameplay mechanics you have to evade. The global cooldown will be lowered through items, so it won't stay on 2.5. Like, the game slowly realizes that you are getting further and further into the game, and it gets tougher and faster. But again, if you are coming from World of Warcraft with 10, 15 years or something like that, and then you jump into Final Fantasy XIV, the first thing you think is, what the hell is this? How can anyone play this? It is so slow. And then you realize actually that there is a rhythm to Final Fantasy XIV. Like, people call it a dance when it comes to fights. And learning that dance will take you a while. But the best advice I can give is just enjoy the ride. It's not like World of Warcraft, where the mission is to reach the goal. Let's be honest here. You have done leveling in World of Warcraft probably a dozen times, and we all know that it isn't really anything exhilarating. It's really just there to keep you a little bit from the end game, and then the end game is where the real game begins. Where in Final Fantasy XIV, it's all about the journey. And in that journey, you actually already get a lot of things you will also do in the end game. You will not just unlock certain gameplay parts in the end game, you already unlock them through your leveling process. Like raiding. You unlock that when you level. And you will have those raids. So it is very different in comparison how World of Warcraft is doing things. So you could even go so far to say that the leveling process is somewhat already the end game, because there are so many gameplay mechanics you will also find when you reach max level again. So keep that in mind. Now, let's talk about the fourth and last point. Enjoy being a newcomer. We don't call you noobs in Final Fantasy XIV, we actually call you sprouts, because every newcomer will be marked with a little sprout symbol next to their name. And I had friends who were basically screaming at me to, how can I remove this? I don't want this. What is this? This is, and excuse my wording here, shit. I want this removed immediately. Because they were afraid. They were afraid of what it means to be marked as a newcomer. Because let's be honest here, if there's one thing I have learned in World of Warcraft over all those years, they're not very newcomer friendly. Like, all the people expect from you immediately to know everything. You don't really try to ask any questions because people are like, how do you not know this? Wait, you are a tank in this dungeon and you don't know the dungeon? What the hell, man? I will report you immediately. Right? Like, I have seen those things in World of Warcraft, and it's like, wait, what? In Final Fantasy XIV, though, it's the opposite. People embrace the newcomers. They want to help them. They want to answer questions. They want to make them feel at home. And they don't really expect anything from you. Like, if you are a healer or a tank, and they see that you are a newcomer, they will hold back. They will actually try to support you. I've seen it multiple times where I died as a tank and the newcomer was a healer. And the healer was just constantly saying sorry in the chat. I was like, calm down. That's all good. You don't know this boss fight. You don't know this dungeon. You're new to the game. Like, just enjoy the game as it is. I'm not mad at you. That's fine. Or even as a healer, I've seen tanks pulling too much and they're like, oh, I thought I could have pulled more. I didn't know like what my limits are yet. And everyone was like super supportive and they were giving them tips and they just try to help people. Does that mean there are no dicks in this game? Yeah, no, they are. There are always some bad apples somewhere, right? I mean, they're all playing video games. It is what it is. But I would say that 90% of this community is very supportive, very helpful, and embrace being a newcomer. Ask questions, make mistakes, and just enjoy your journey. And don't be afraid of that, because Final Fantasy XIV is actually really supporting newcomers, and the whole community is very welcome. Most of them. With that said, we're at the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it a little bit. And we will be back with a new video at some point. If you enjoyed it and you're on your way out, there is the like button. If you didn't enjoy this video, well, the dislike button is right next to it. And if you're also new to the channel, you want to see more Final Fantasy videos, Lost Ark, Icarus, reactions to videos and conferences, then you came to the right channel. And I would appreciate if you might consider to subscribe to the channel and also click the bell icon as far as I know, because man, YouTube really doesn't want you to watch any videos. So yeah, make sure you also ring the bell so that you are getting informed when a new video is up. With that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.